Good morning. My name is Jason Crean. I am the Mid-Eastern Regional Director and the Chair of the Education Committee for AFA, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Sally Huntington this morning. I feel a little in awe because two of the pillars of aviculture are in their same room, Sally and Kateri. This is really exciting for me. So I've worked with Sally. We've done mouse birds for years, along with Kateri, and it's really a pleasure to see both of them in person after all these years. Sally is a licensed psychotherapist, so avicultural conventions must just be a blast for you. She's been keeping birds since 1988. She's all kinds of finches, softbills. She has a MAP certified aviary, and she's done a great deal of work with National Finch and Softbill Society, another arena that we've shared over the years. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Sally Huntington this morning.
Thank you, Jason. Can you hear me? Yes, yes? Well, if anybody who attended Scott Golden's presentation yesterday, remember he said Plan B? I'm Plan B. I'm the one that, if it doesn't work out, I'll tell you what to do. You're Plan B person, go-to person. Like we were talking a little bit at dinner last night, why in the world would you want to hand raise anything? Well, because they're cute. Also because we're running out of birds. They're getting extinct. No one has, oh, that's really low, that light. Okay. And the other thing is, almost all the Gouldians, more Gouldians are raised in aviculture than are in the wild. Isn't that amazing? And that's happening with a lot of the birds. Too many. So as aviculturists, we want to learn as much as we can. We probably won't be putting them back into the wild, but we can learn as much as we can, raise as many as we can, and at least keep them in aviculture. I don't know about the zoos, but at least in aviculture, and propagate that way. And you learn a lot by hand rearing. Remember the old days? $10 a bird, grab what you can. Those days are long gone. So, Plan B. When the babies get tossed, they won't sit the eggs, or they just abandon the babies. That's when you step in. The kind of aside from that is a little asterisk is, sometimes you get real good pets, and you learn about the birds when they're pets like that. For example, let's see. What was the thing I was... Oh, I got it here. Okay. This is silver-eared Messia that are raised. And in my aviaries, I let her go loose. So she helps me do things. But you also learn which ones are nosy, which ones can get in trouble in your aviary, get stuck in things. The Messias don't. This is Peel's parrot finch. And then also I have some of the fruit doves, a pair of black-naped fruit doves with their baby. So, okay, so you either find a chick or abandoned nest. What's the first thing you do? Warmth. Always start with warmth, no matter what. How old the chick is, you have to get it warm first. And the second thing you do is you hydrate. After it's warm, you hydrate, and then you have to make sure it's pooping before you start feeding. And in that order, whether it's finches or softbills. And again, never feed a cold chick. The food will rot in its crop or sour in its crop, and you always want to hydrate the food through. Okay, so I'm going to focus on temperatures a minute. I do use an incubator. I use the incubator at 101, give or take, and at the max 65 humidity. I use the Brincia. Let's see if I have it here. These are some of my heating methods. Like Jason said, I'm a psychotherapist, so I have to take my birds that I'm feeding to work. So I've got all these kind of small carrier situations so I can take them back to work. My patients are great. I feed them in between sessions, and I always tell my patients that I raise birds so I have something to talk to family and friends about. They all appreciate that. These are other options for keeping chicks warm. This is the Brincia incubator that I use for hatching, and I sometimes use it for the first 24 hours for brooding. And last but not least, if you're really desperate, you can always use a warm friend. And warm friends come in all sizes, that's for sure. Let's see. I skipped a slide here. What happened? Just a second. Okay. As far as feeding, for the soft bills, I use frozen crickets. I buy them alive, and you know the box that they come in, and I stick it in the freezer, and then as I need crickets, I take out the frozen crickets. I somehow skipped to soft bills on this, and I'm not sure how. Give me a second here, I have to go back. I don't know why it skipped. 17. Okay. They got out of order. Well, I'll keep going. That's for feeding. For pooping soft bills, anybody who's raised soft bills will know, and if those of you who haven't, they poop out egg sac, and that's like an envelope with the poop in it. And you can pick it up, the parents can pick it up and keep the nest very, very clean. I use all sorts of things for the soft bills. You know, what works for one, unfortunately I've learned the hard way, doesn't work for another. The Messias, for instance, they get frozen crickets soaked in Pedialyte or what is it? Polyade Plus. For the pecan robins, I use the Missouri song food formula that you squirt down their throat with a pipette. And that's some of the things I've used for the soft bills. To keep them warm, I use a heater, coffee heater, and then I put a bowl and then water inside there. That way it doesn't get too hot. It stays for about 4 hours, and then you change it for whether it's the songbird food or just the water for the crickets. I know some people use tweezers for feeding crickets. I don't, just because I'm always, with the small birds, I'm afraid I'm going to puncture their little throat, even the rounded crickets. So I use my fingers or the plastic pipettes or eyedroppers. A little aside on the eyedroppers, I ran into a problem with eyedroppers a while ago when I first started this, writing the written part. I was feeding, everything was going fine, then all of a sudden all my chicks were dying. I panicked. I thought, oh no, I can't do a presentation on feeding chicks if all my chicks die from the incubator. And I changed food, I cleaned the incubator, changed food again. And then I thought, you know, I wonder if it's my pipettes. And my pipettes, the original pipettes I got were in bulk. And I'd had them for 2 years. So I thought, you don't suppose. So I reordered pipettes. This time they came you can see in that sleeve, and they're sterile, and voila, that was it. So you never know what it's gonna be. This is silver Messia hatching. Oops, go back. The silver Messia hatching, and this is, oops, back. Feeding the one, well, I guess it is in the movie. This is the Violaceous euphonia hatching. Oh no, that's feeding. There it is, hatch. Let's see if I can get a hatching back. No, that's that one. I'm not real good at computers. It's not my forte. All right. Anyway, that's the microphone. It's the euphonia hatching in the incubator, and then 10 days old, and I think this is about 2 months old. The only reason I hatch any of the birds in the incubator is if I'm not sure they're going to raise their chicks, I've never had with babies or anything from them, or even eggs. So 2 things I want to know. Are the eggs fertile? I'll find that out when I put it in the incubator. And if I raise just one baby, at least I've got a heads up on it. If I just ignore them and they toss their eggs, which this pair actually had done, they tossed their first eggs. I thought, oh, darn it. So I'll take the next egg, see if it's fertile, raise it, and go from there. Okay. I don't know why all my slides are out of order. Okay, I'll have to go backwards. Okay, feeding softbills. We were having trouble last night. Okay. I don't know why. I didn't check it this morning. Anyway, we've seen that one. The peels. Anybody saw the Scott Golden's presentation yesterday? There's the little peels. A lot of them stay friendly. Some don't, some do. When they stay friendly, you kind of know how social they're going to be, or have some feel for it. Okay. Show navigator. I'm missing a bunch of things. Bear with me a minute. Somehow, I was having computer problems yesterday, and somehow everything got out of order. So, at least it's working, but I've got what? Okay. Anywho, some of the problems, whenever I have any problems with the finches, whether it's gas, crop spasms, pasty vent, I always go back to hydrate. And the hydrate is bottled water and Poly 8+. That's my first place to start. After that, there's a variety of things you can do, but it's always my first place to start. You know, make sure that the whole system is working. Poly 8+ is made by Veda Farm, and it's a combination of some probiotics and some kind of bicarbonate. So it seems to aid in, if the bird is dehydrated, I often will crop needle. This is an uncooperative crop needle. See, you have to be careful when you crop needle. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they don't. This is an example, as best I could. You know, when you have a chick in trouble, you're not real quick to take pictures because you're too busy fussing with them. The bird on the top with the smaller crop, I know is going to have trouble. The crop's kind of shrinking, there's going to be problems. And that's when I'll start hydrating. Hopefully, whatever's in there will pass through. The one on the bottom, you can see the size of the crop. It should be about half the size of the bird's head. If you've ever run into problems, more so I've run into this with the softbills, is they're not pooping. They're not passing the feces, and you can kind of see it build up a little bit through their clear bodies. With the softbills, they poop just about every time you feed them. So if you've gone 3 or 4 feedings and the bird's not pooping, you're in a bit of trouble, so you want to get them to poop. So I don't know if anybody's old enough to have ever heard of a sitz bath, but they used to use sitz baths for people with bottom troubles, vent problems. So with the birds, you can do the same thing. And the sitz bath is the only way I've figured that it helps. I think I've been able to save about 80% that way, but every once in a while it doesn't work.
I mean, 80% of the time you use that, they'll pass.
Yes, they'll pass the poop. Yeah. Okay. With the crop needle, never force feed a bird with a pipette. You can with a crop needle, but you can't with a pipette. There's our little guy again. That's a Peel's parrotfinch that Scott was talking about, Mr. Golden was talking about yesterday. Okay. In case you wondered, do finches talk? They do. When I'm raising a couple at a time, sometimes they connect and bond to each other. In this case, it was a maskgrass finch and a mouse bird, and they were in love. This is X-rated, this one. And underneath there's an egg. Yeah. Huh? The egg was not fertile. The egg was prior. The mouse bird was a hen, and the maskgrass finch was the male. Okay. Yeah.
Switch it just a second.
Here's another picture of feeding. This happens to be, I think this was a cardinal, the pygmy cardinal, Roland. And again, for the pygmy cardinal, the pipette worked better than the,
Good poop.
yeah.
A lot of poop for a little guy.
I use one for usually 3 to 4 hours, for as long as the food is out. Mm-hmm. Let me go through here a minute. Where's the beginning? Whoops. All right. Sorry. Oh, I hate computers. All right, where's my little thinger? There we go. Back. I have about 300 birds. Every day, all the finches and such get the soaked pellets and the egg food. That's how I soak the pellets in Soluvite, and I have added Calcivet regularly. It's also made by Veda Farm. It's got a high, it's a vitamin, water-soluble vitamin with D3, a lot of D3 in it for indoor birds.
Where is Veda Farm from? Is that Australian?
Australian, yes. Do I, pardon me?
That's all species?
I do. The finches, as well as the softbills, it's main food for the softbills. It's a main food for the softbills. They get zuprine, cockatiel, fruit blend breeder regularly as a dry food, and then I soak the zuprine pellets in the Soluvite and Calcivet. And then I use fruit in season, mainly for the softbills, but sometimes I'll add it to the finches. Because the little finches, you know, when you're feeding the softbills, they're all looking over, well, how come they get that? So I felt bad. The egg food I feed daily is the hard-boiled egg and CD mixed together, and a little bit of Vionate, and it stays dry. I also, if they're getting mealworms, that'll go in it. This is my aviaries. You can see the Brincia incubator. I have 14 tall aviaries. Okay. I missed a few in here, but any questions? Yes,
In the aviary, can you go back to the picture of the aviaries?
maybe. Okay, there,
Okay,
yeah.
so the little pan down at the bottom,
Oh, the green pans on the bottom, those are bath water. That's bath water.
for the birds to take out.
Yes, yeah.
And they look like they're about 6 inches deep?
Oh, no, they're about 3 inches deep.
Oh,
Yeah, no, they're not deep at all. Some of them are square. I bought from one of the companies that went out of business. And then the other ones are the round saucers that that hold plants. You know, the saucers beneath the pot.
okay, and then all the different feeders that you have, do you use those so that birds don't fight, or do you have any, is there any henpecking?
They're pretty well separated. I don't have, in each flight are birds, either a single pair, like a single pair of Brazilian cardinals, single pair of the black-naped fruit doves, and right now I have a colony of masked grass finches. So there's always, you can see it a little bit. I've got those water bottles on the back, and so there's always that clean water there, 2 sets of water. Don't ask me how I learned that.
What size are
The aviaries, Vince, are,
4 by 7, 8 feet
yeah. I do breed the zebras, some of the Goulians, the societies. I do cage breed them. And the peels I've been cage breeding.
These are 4 feet wide, 7 feet long, and 8 feet.
Yeah. I've enclosed the room because when we first started, my builder and I first started, it seems like we were always running into cats in the neighborhood, raccoons, snakes, hawks, and the rats that got my all my pecan robins. That did it, yeah. And yes, yeah. So, and then when the West Nile virus and then the H1N1, that was it. So, and there's skylights in there. I don't know. maybe this one. You can see the skylights. And then there's windows all the way around. I do not heat it or, yes. The other birds, the zebras and such are in, I don't have pictures of that, in utility cages. I breed the zebras, societies, some Goulians, the violaceous euphonias are in a breeder cage.
So the ones in the aviary, why are they chosen to be in?
They're larger birds, for one, and they need more room. Yeah. And some of the birds, some get real fat if they're in a small enclosed area. So, and I've got a few birds that are loose out there. Oh, okay, the question is, I do something unique with my breeder cages, multiple pairs. I do keep societies and zebras often together. And sometimes that works pretty good, sometimes it doesn't. But then, was that what you were referring to? Yeah. Yeah, most of the time they do. If anybody doesn't, then I move them out. And like the violaceous euphonias do real well obviously in the breeder cage. I also keep a pair of yellow-legged honeycreepers in a breeder cage. I don't have a picture of some of those in the peels and the euphonias. I do use newsprint around the cages that I change every couple months, so they're not bothered by their neighbors, and they're not as messy. Because the euphonias, the softbills can be pretty messy. If anybody's had mouse birds, you know that. No, I buy bulk newsprint in large rolls. No, I use the crickets for the silver-eared messias. I have one fairy bluebird I'm looking for a hen for, and those get the crickets. Everybody else gets mealworms. And frozen. Fresh frozen crickets. Yum, yum, yum. I tried live crickets, but a lot get away. So, and Hal Vocati had told me he was feeding he hand-raised a lot of the fairy bluebirds, and he used crickets. One thing about the crickets, when you're hand-feeding the messias and beginning with them, when they're frozen, their little heads pop off real easy, and their little legs pop off. I use medium size, and so they're easily digested.
Take off the head and the feet.
Yeah. Feed them the little juicy body. And they thaw real quickly.
And that's soaked in water?
That's soaked in the Pedialyte or the Polyate Plus. So they get a little extra oomph to that. You had a question? Yes.
I hand raise pretty regularly,
Mm-hmm.
and I've kind of run into the problem of a run, I would call it, where it just doesn't develop. I will force feed it, and it won't thrive at all. And I'm giving them Megamix, so I treat for yeast infection. I do preventative
Mm-hmm.
infection, so they're otherwise totally healthy. I wait until the yolk sac is, completely digested, that type of thing. It's either right before a week or right at the 2-week mark. I've noticed it'll happen. They'll just gradually get weaker.
Oh, I hate that.
And they just
Yeah.
end up dying for whatever reason. Every vet that I've asked, because I have avian vets who I
Mm-hmm.
talk to more so than sleep, and every one of them has just said it's a genetic disorder, something along the lines of like a misformed heart or something, because I do it so regularly. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a high rate of some kind of defect.
The question is, she's losing chicks after hand rearing chicks after about a week. What species?
Zebra finches always, and it's always just one every so often. Like
Okay.
3 or 4 clutches of like 3 or 4, and every so often we just one who's really tiny, just significantly. It looks like a week behind developmentally, but it's just a day or 2 behind.
Interesting.
Goes
Yeah.
weeks during the year.
So she's in the clutch that you're hand rearing, there'll be a runt, and the runt just slowly fades away and doesn't keep up with the rest. I don't know about the genetics, but you can just tell when you're losing one. That's the awful part with this. Once you've reared enough birds, or any animals for that matter, you start to lose them. That's why I go back to the polyate, just in case, because it's got a little bit of the sugar, salt, the kind of probiotics, and maybe there's something in the digestion that's not working. Roland, did you have something to say? So Roland said maybe the birds have atoxic. Yeah, yeah. And you said atoxoplasmosis. Yeah, probably not if they're only losing one. Coccidia based? Yeah. Well, there's also, with some of the Australian finches, there's canker. And there's a wet canker and a dry canker. And the dry canker are the little spots that you get on the beak or around the face. And the wet canker seems to show up in a wet vent. So, yeah, John. Thrives. So John said, yeah. Yeah. So John's suggesting that probably in the wild that's not unusual to lose maybe one in a clutch of 3, 4, 5. Yes, it does happen in the aviary. Mr. Huntington.
She's the bird person. I'm the more hardcore scientist. It looks like what we're learning from all this. As I sit there and hold the camera, things like that, I don't know half the time what bird we're looking at. Is that we're taking apart some of the old wives' tale that they throw the baby out because they know there's something wrong with it. And because they're not. There's hardly anything wrong with 8 out of 10 of them. They raise to fruition. So remember when we first got into birds, they said, well, they throw them out because there's something wrong with the birds, so as though the parents could read the shell or something. So that's all just bullshit. So we are learning. What we found is if the bird, if you leave it on the ground or you leave the egg in the nest, you lose 100% of it. But I've watched her, and you say between 50 and 60%.
Yeah, I'd say at 60 to 70%.
Yeah. So is there something wrong with these birds that the parents know about? Appears not.
Yeah.
Looks like the ignorant mother doesn't know what that thing is in her nest, or she's not in the mood.
Some parents. Yeah.
No, you're taking apart old wives.
Well, I'm saying that you can save a lot of birds. And we don't know always why. They get scared, they get confused, the ambience isn't right, they're nervous. There can be a multitude of things. You walk by the wrong way.
There was a discussion the other day on Facebook by old timers, about do any of those birds you hand raise reproduce?
That's, I read that from Frank. Okay. It's a great question. How successful are hand-reared birds back parent raising their own chicks? And the tricky part of that is, I can't really answer that because most of the birds that I hand rear are kind of nervous, not real good parents to begin with. So I would say there's a few species, yes, that definitely improve. Probably mouse birds are one of them. Would you agree, Kateri? They're good parents, and they're less skittery.
I actually, since I raised so many of my hens in the breeding season, I'll have one of my hen tames, the older hen tame, they'll actually start feeding the juveniles. So they're really great as foster parents or something along those lines. I've never actually used them that way. When I start seeing that, I'll separate them.
What species?
Zebra finches.
Zebra finches,
So I'll
okay.
have like a 6 month or even a year old hen tame who's in the cage just with the other babies, and they'll actually start feeding them. So I'll have to, at that point, separate them.
So the zebra finches are pretty good about it. Some of the rarer ones I find, it definitely helps that they're less skittish. I don't know that I could say they make better parents. I don't know that I have enough of a track record. Yes, Roland? You're not a what?
That is socialized properly. That means that try to raise it at least with one bird when you hand raise it, not by itself. And when it starts weaning, start weaning that bird the day it flies. Make sure it's with a bird of its own time. They make far better, more calmer steps when you look breathing. The only thing you gotta worry about is you'll just nest box and come out and fight you in the middle.
I don't know if anybody heard that. You're saying, if I can paraphrase it back, that the parrots and the larger birds that you've hand-reared, that when it comes time to weaning, if you put them back with their own species to wean,
What I'm saying is,
or fledge?
when you take babies off to hand raise, and I take most of ours off by the time they're 10 times. Because I like
Hands-on.
You put nest mates with nest mates. You don't do it by themselves.
Right.
Gloria Allen, I'm going back 35 years ago. There was a time in aviculture, and even Rosemary Lowe said you should do this. Raise them by themselves, they make better pets.
Right.
No, they don't socialize with birds that way. And a bird is a bird is a bird.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be one of their own species.
They could be of another species, but when you get them to where you're going to wean them, you hopefully want to have them with a like species.
Yes, yes, I agree with that. I found that with the mass grass finches.
When they start learning the song, that's when they're going to start learning. And your finch learn how to talk, because that's when we're learning how to do song, and you picked up your word.
Yes, yes. Yes, John?
Emphasizing another thing is wean them when they fly, not after, not later. That's more effective for them, because a bird out of the nest is very, they may not be eating everything they're supposed to be, but they're starting to eat on their own. And if they're not, if they're dependent on you, they eat these babies while they're hungry. Just like people, it screws them up.
Well, that's a good point. So in other words, when they fledge out of the nest, let them go and okay. It doesn't work with some of the softbills because some of them leave the nest so soon. Yeah.
When I open my brood and a lorry takes off across the room, it goes into a weaning cage.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
When a softbill comes off the nest and
Yeah.
And the parents are gonna feed it for 2-3 weeks.
Very true.
Talking about two different things.
Yes, yes.
I think the key is know your species.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the softbills they're off the nest in 10 days, and they're hardly pin feathered out. And the finches don't leave the nest for almost 20 days. I mean, they're fully feathered. So there is a difference there. Yes, Jason?
I want to piggyback on what Roland said. I completely agree with some birds make better appearance when they've been, treated properly by people.
Mm-hmm.
We find it in a lot of species we keep in zoos. I find it with the softbills that I've raised, including buzzbills, but they're not great anymore. I mean, I risk my life on a daily basis when I go into some of those are starting to use them. But I do think that it does not, that rule of thumb does not work for everybody.
Right.
So, you need to know your species. You need to make sure that you're very, very clear on what you can get away with when it comes to rearing. But that myth that hand-reared birds, little parents is that does not apply to everybody.
Well, the upshot of all that is you need to know your species, definitely. And you need to know how they socialize, when they socialize. Yes?
Another thing too is when you hand rear everything, you're not really sure what's getting passed along. A lot of it's great, but I mean, you're gonna pass along some genetic traits of birds that are not gonna be the best parents. Like hatchery salmon are really lower than wild survivability rate because the spigs wouldn't get thrown out there too, and that happens with us too, so you just
So that's-
saving everything. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
The birds are gonna live in captivity,
Yeah.
but you just don't know,
So you don't know what you're saving genetically. Yes. Yes, Cheryl.
So I was gonna say, Sally, this is gonna be a great plug for why you would join an organization such as NFSS or one of the other specialties is to learn more about your particular species.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You really can't learn enough. And by hand rearing, you do learn some specifics and which ones do bond, which ones don't bond. We were talking earlier with Scott Golden's. Most of the parrot finches, if you let them fledge and put them back with like species, they're fine. They don't bond. There are some of the other ones, societies bond, but they still make good parents. The masked grass finches bond, and it's kind of iffy. Some seem to make good parents and stay connected to you. Some others won't even look at a nest. So it is definitely species related. Yes?
So where does one go to join the National Finch Society?
Great question. Where does one go to join the National Finch and Softbill Society? You're in luck.
No, that one in the other room.
Right in the other room. You're in luck.
If somebody is online and not here
Yes.
and is gonna watch your video, how can I find that out?
You can tell them to go to nfss.org, and they will be directed to our website, and then we also have a Facebook page, which I'm blanking of what the Facebook page.
Just Google the official National Finch and Softbill Society.
Okay. And just Google the National Finch and Softbill Society. Well, it's just,
That's the name of it. It's
well,
official National Finch and Softbill.
well, no, official isn't in the name. The name is National Finch and Softbill Society, and you'll find a lot of different leads. And they're, oh, you have to put official in front of it? Oh, just on Facebook. On Facebook, you have to put Finch official in front of. You guys are bad. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, you will. Even if you go just to the nfss.org, there's a link there. So, a lot of good information, and for some of these, especially some of these rare birds, we're just the tip of the iceberg. The more I learn, the more I know I don't know. Boy.
Often says, nothing is more humbling first And nothing is more humbling than starting their hand thrown away.
Yeah.
It's pretty humbling.
Yeah, and if I always figure if I don't try, I'll lose them anyway. So I've got a better than a 50-50 chance. And I've learned a lot. But again, just the tip of the iceberg. Any other questions?
But it's warm, hydrate, food, and glass of water.
Feeding.
Warm.
Warmth. Always warm a chick. Never do anything with it until you've warmed it. And even if you have to put it with a warm friend. All right? You can, that's an act, and a hand's another. Warm friend and a hand. And breathe on it. Yeah, yeah. We have done that a lot. Any other questions? You have a question? Yes. Okay.
But I mean, put them on the back of the table, if you want to see me later, hand them to me, that'd be great, I really appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And you're welcome.